Max Tanner, a struggling comedian, stumbles upon a cursed joke book rumored to kill through uncontrollable laughter. At first, the deadly power brings him sudden fame until audiences start collapsing mid-show. With sharp-witted ally Leela and cynical detective Reed, Max uncovers a sinister cult and a terrifying figure known as the Jester, the curse's living embodiment. Hunted by assassins and haunted by fate, Max must battle chaos with humor itself. In a final showdown where punchlines become weapons, he turns deadly laughter into salvation. But even after breaking the curse, one question remains: who gets the last laugh? Max Tanner had never been lucky. The kind of luck where the universe seems to conspire against you in the most creatively cruel ways. Tonight was no different. He found himself standing outside the Rusty Anchor, a dive bar that smelled of stale beer and broken dreams, clutching an ancient, leather-bound book that looked like it had been through more wars than he had gigs. The neon sign above flickered erratically, casting a sickly glow on the damp pavement. Earlier that day, on a whim driven more by desperation than curiosity, Max had wandered into a cramped antique shop nestled between a laundromat and a failing pawn shop. The shop was a labyrinth of dusty shelves and creaky floorboards, the air heavy with the scent of mildew and forgotten stories. Behind the counter sat Harold Finch, an elderly man with thick glasses that magnified his watchful eyes and a thin, knowing smile. Looking for anything in particular? Harold had asked, his voice gravelly but inviting. Something different, Max replied, running a hand through his rumpled hair. Maybe something to get me out of this rut. Harold reached under the counter and pulled out a book that looked like it had been buried for centuries. Its cover was cracked and mottled, embossed with intricate symbols that seemed to shift when you weren't looking directly at them. This, Harold said, is no ordinary joke book. Rumor has it, the jokes inside are so potent, so lethal, that they can kill with laughter. Max laughed nervously. Sounds like a gimmick. Maybe, Harold shrugged. Or maybe it's the universe's way of telling you to be careful what you wish for. Against better judgment, Max bought the book, the weight of it oddly comforting in his hands. That night, he found himself on the dim stage of the Rusty Anchor. The audience, a ragtag group of regulars, nursing their drinks and their disappointments. Max opened the cursed book, its pages yellowed and brittle, and found a joke scrawled in looping script. He cleared his throat. All right, folks, here's something a bit different. The joke was absurdly simple, but delivered with a cadence that made the punchline land like a thunderclap. The crowd erupted in laughter, their guffaws echoing off the peeling walls. But then, the laughter grew uncontrollable, a tidal wave of sound that seemed to shake the very air. Max watched in horror as one man doubled over, clutching his chest, face twisting in a grimace before collapsing. The room froze. The laughter died, replaced by a stunned silence punctuated only by ragged breaths and the distant wail of a siren. The surreal truth was undeniable. The jokes were deadly. Backstage, Max's mind raced. The book felt heavier in his bag, as if it bore the weight of unseen eyes watching, waiting. He knew this was only the beginning. The cursed joke book had chosen him, and the price of laughter was about to become painfully clear. Sitting alone in his cramped apartment, Max stared at the book under the flickering light. He was caught between disbelief and dark amusement, the absurdity of the situation both terrifying and strangely exhilarating. One thing was certain, his life had just taken a turn into the bizarre, and there was no going back. The cursed joke book was more than an oddity, it was a ticking time bomb wrapped in punchlines, and Max Tanner was holding the fuse. The first laugh had been deadly. what came next would be even stranger. "Well," Max muttered to himself, fingers tracing the cracked leather cover, "let's see how far this rabbit hole goes." Outside, the city pulsed with indifferent rhythm, unaware that a new kind of comedy was about to rewrite its rules forever. Max Tanner, a struggling comedian, stumbles upon a cursed joke book rumored to kill through uncontrollable laughter. At first, the deadly power brings him sudden fame until audiences start collapsing mid-show. With sharp-witted ally Leela and cynical detective Reed, Max uncovers a sinister cult and a terrifying figure known as the Jester, the curse's living embodiment. Hunted by assassins and haunted by fate, Max must battle chaos with humor itself. In a final showdown where punchlines become weapons, he turns deadly laughter into salvation. But even after breaking the curse, one question remains: who gets the last laugh? Max Tanner had never been lucky. The kind of luck where the universe seems to conspire against you in the most creatively cruel ways. Tonight was no different. He found himself standing outside the Rusty Anchor, a dive bar that smelled of stale beer and broken dreams, clutching an ancient, leather-bound book that looked like it had been through more wars than he had gigs. The neon sign above flickered erratically, casting a sickly glow on the damp pavement. Earlier that day, on a whim driven more by desperation than curiosity, Max had wandered into a cramped antique shop nestled between a laundromat and a failing pawn shop. The shop was a labyrinth of dusty shelves and creaky floorboards, the air heavy with the scent of mildew and forgotten stories. Behind the counter sat Harold Finch, an elderly man with thick glasses that magnified his watchful eyes and a thin, knowing smile. "Looking for anything in particular?" Harold had asked, his voice gravelly but inviting. "Something different," Max replied, running a hand through his rumpled hair. "Maybe something to get me out of this rut." Harold reached under the counter and pulled out a book that looked like it had been buried for centuries. Its cover was cracked and mottled, embossed with intricate symbols that seemed to shift when you weren't looking directly at them. "This," Harold said, "is no ordinary joke book. Rumor has it, the jokes inside are so potent, so lethal, that they can kill with laughter." Max laughed nervously. "Sounds like a gimmick. Maybe," Harold shrugged. "Or maybe it's the universe's way of telling you to be careful what you wish for." Against better judgment, Max bought the book, the weight of it oddly comforting in his hands. That night, he found himself on the dim stage of the Rusty Anchor. The audience, a ragtag group of regulars, nursing their drinks and their disappointments. Max opened the cursed book, its pages yellowed and brittle, and found a joke scrawled in looping script. He cleared his throat. "All right, folks, here's something a bit different." The joke was absurdly simple, but delivered with a cadence that made the punchline land like a thunderclap. The crowd erupted in laughter, their guffaws echoing off the peeling walls. But then, the laughter grew uncontrollable, a tidal wave of sound that seemed to shake the very air. Max watched in horror as one man doubled over, clutching his chest, face twisting in a grimace before collapsing. The room froze. The laughter died, replaced by a stunned silence punctuated only by ragged breaths and the distant wail of a siren. The surreal truth was undeniable. The jokes were deadly. Backstage, Max's mind raced. The book felt heavier in his bag, as if it bore the weight of unseen eyes watching, waiting. He knew this was only the beginning. The cursed joke book had chosen him, and the price of laughter was about to become painfully clear. Sitting alone in his cramped apartment, Max stared at the book under the flickering light. He was caught between disbelief and dark amusement. the absurdity of the situation both terrifying and strangely exhilarating. One thing was certain, his life had just taken a turn into the bizarre, and there was no going back. The cursed joke book was more than an oddity, it was a ticking time bomb wrapped in punchlines, and Max Tanner was holding the fuse. The first laugh had been deadly. What came next would be even stranger. Well, Max muttered to himself, fingers tracing the cracked leather cover. Let's see how far this rabbit hole goes. Outside, the city pulsed with indifferent rhythm, unaware that a new kind of comedy was about to rewrite its rules forever. Max Tanner's name was starting to echo through the smoky, cramped corridors of the city's comedy clubs like an ominous thunderclap, simultaneously promising laughter and a hint of dread. It was a strange sensation for Max, 1 part exhilaration, 2 parts anxiety, and an unrelenting 3rd part fear. The cursed joke book, once a dusty relic gathering cobwebs on Harold Finch's cluttered shelves, had thrust Max into a spotlight he never sought but couldn't escape. Tommy Sparks, the grizzled owner of the Punchliner Comedy Club that had seen better days and probably worse ones, too had offered Max a bigger stage, not because he believed in cursed books or supernatural punchlines, but because the crowd numbers spoke for themselves. Word had spread, the gossip circuits buzzed, and people wanted to see the comic who could command hysterics like no one else. Max stood backstage, the murmur of the growing crowd filtering through the curtains like a distant storm. Lila Nguyen was there beside him, her presence a steady anchor amidst the tempest of his nerves. She was stylish and confident, the ever-present smirk on her face a silent reassurance that whatever happened, they'd face it together. "Remember," Lila whispered, "you're the one in control. The book doesn't write your jokes, you do." Max forced a smile, though his hands betrayed him with a subtle tremor. The joke book had given him those killer lines, but the deadly cost was becoming impossible to ignore. The first fatality, the chaotic crowds, the whispers of assassins lurking in shadows. It was a lot for any comedian to handle. Tommy Sparks appeared just then, leaning against the bar with his usual leather jacket and skeptical gaze. "You ready for this?" he asked, voice rough but not unkind. "As ready as I'll ever be," Max replied, a nervous chuckle escaping despite himself. The stage lights dimmed, then flared to life, spotlighting Max as he stepped into the circle of heat and expectation. The crowd's faces blurred into a sea of eager anticipation, their laughter a tangible wave rolling towards him. Each joke he delivered was met with uproarious response, the sound filling the room and swelling Max's confidence. Yet beneath that laughter was a gnawing fear, a shadow that crept closer with every punchline. Max could feel it in the tightening of his chest, the sweat beading at his temples. The curse was real, and it was watching. Backstage, Leela scanned the entrance, her eyes sharp for any sign of trouble. The crowd was swelling beyond control, and with it, the risk. "We need to keep it contained," she murmured to Max during a brief pause. "Too many people, too much chaos." Max nodded, the weight of her words sinking in. Fame was a double-edged sword, and the sharpness of the curse was carving into his life deeper than ever. After the show, Max retreated to a worn leather sofa in the dimly lit green room. The cheers still echoed in his ears, but the silence around him was deafening. His hands trembled as he stared at the cursed joke book lying innocuously on the table. The book that had given him everything and threatened to take it all away. "You're doing great," Leela said softly, sitting beside him. "We'll figure this out." But Max wasn't so sure. Each laugh was a victory, yes, but also a step closer to the abyss. The balance between success and survival was razor thin, and the joke was on him if he fell. The city's neon lights flickered through the grimy windows, casting long shadows that danced like specters on the walls. Max, Tanner, once just another struggling comic, was now the reluctant master of a deadly craft. The punchlines were sharper, the stakes higher, and the laughter more dangerous than ever. And somewhere in the darkness, the jester's grin widened, waiting for the next act to begin. The question was no longer whether Max could make them laugh. It was whether he could keep himself alive while doing it. The night stretched on, thick with tension and the promise of chaos. Max's journey was far from over, and the next joke might just be his last. With a final deep breath, Max rose from the sofa, the cursed book tucked under his arm. "Let's see what happens next," he muttered, stepping back into the neon-lit night, ready to embrace the twisted fate that awaited him. And as the city buzzed around him, the thin line between comedy and catastrophe blurred ever more, promising that every laugh carried a deadly weight. The curtain was rising on the next act, and Max Tanner was center stage. The comedy club thrummed with a nervous energy that night, the air thick with cigarette smoke and the murmurs of an eager crowd. Max Tanner adjusted the microphone stand, his fingers trembling just slightly as he glanced out over the sea of faces. The old joke book nestled in his jacket pocket felt like a live thing, its worn pages whispering dark promises. Tonight was different. The stakes were higher. The laughter, he hoped, would drown out the dread that had been crawling beneath his skin since the first fatal joke. As Max stepped into the spotlight, the stage lights hit him with a warm glow, casting long, distorted shadows that danced on the walls. The crowd's faces blurred into a mosaic of expectant smiles and eager eyes. His heart hammered, but he forced a grin, the familiar nervous smile of a man who'd spent too many nights drowning his fears in punchlines. "So," Max began, voice steady despite the chaos in his mind, "ever notice how life's like a bad joke? You don't always get the punchline, but you're stuck laughing anyway." A ripple of laughter rolled through the room, genuine and bright. For a moment, Max felt the old thrill, the simple joy of making people laugh. But then, something shifted. Near the back of the room, a figure moved with unnatural silence, a shadow slipping through the crowd like a wraith. Leela's sharp gaze caught the motion instantly. Her smirk vanished, replaced by a hard, calculating look. Max was mid-punchline when a sudden, sharp clatter echoed, a chair knocked over, startled gasps, and then chaos. The figure lunged forward, a glint of metal flashing under the dim lights. "Heads up," Lila hissed, just loud enough for Max to hear. Instinct took over. Max ducked, the blade slicing the air where his head had been moments before. The crowd erupted into screams and confusion. The laughter twisted into panic. "Get him!" A cold voice barked from the shadows. Evelyn Cross moved with lethal grace, her eyes icy as she advanced through the crowd, flanked by silent figures whose intent was as clear as the blade in her hand. Max's mind raced, the cursed joke book suddenly a blazing weight against his chest. "Run!" Leela grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the backstage exit. Behind them, the cacophony of shouts and chaos grew. Max's breath came in ragged gasps as they slipped through the narrow corridors, the sounds of pursuit close behind. In the dim backstage light, Max's hands trembled as he clutched the book. "Why now?" he gasped. Leela's eyes hardened. "Because you're onto something, Max. They want that book, and they'll kill anyone who gets in their way." Meanwhile, Detective Reed leaned against the bar in the main room, cigarette smoke curling round his face. His eyes were sharp, scanning the scene with a mix of suspicion and reluctant intrigue. The pieces were starting to fit together, the strange deaths, the sudden attack. And Max Tanner, with his nervous smile and deadly jokes, was at the center. "This isn't just random," Reed muttered, flicking ash into a glass. "Something's rotten in the comedy world." Backstage, Max and Lila caught their breath, the adrenaline slowly ebbing, but the reality sinking in. The cursed joke book was more than a curiosity, was a weapon, and now they were targets. "We need a plan," Max said, voice hoarse but resolute. "Because I'm not done with this yet." Lila nodded, her smirk returning, faint but fierce. "Then let's make sure the next punchline is the last thing they see." As the night deepened, the comedy club's neon sign flickered, casting eerie shadows on the pavement outside. Somewhere in the darkness, the jester watched and smiled, the deadly dance of laughter and death only just beginning. Max's journey had turned from desperate comedy to desperate survival, a twisted routine where every laugh could be his last, and every joke a weapon wielded by fate's cruelest trickster. The curtain had risen on the deadliest act of his life, and there was no encore. The packed room had never felt so hostile. Max's mind spun with every beat of his racing heart. The laughter around him was no longer a bomb, but a bell tolling the approach of danger. The assassins were not just figments of paranoia, they were real, ruthless, and closing in. But Max was no longer just a victim. With Lila's quick thinking and his own razor-sharp wit, he had survived the first attack. The question now loomed larger: how long before the next strike? And more importantly, how would he turn the tables on a fate that seemed determined to kill him with laughter? The show, it seemed, was far from over. Max Tanner sat cross-legged on the threadbare rug inside Harold Finch's antique shop, the dim light casting long shadows over piles of dusty tomes and odd curiosities that smelled of forgotten times. The cursed joke book lay open before him, its yellowed pages brittle under his fingertips, each joke inked in a script that seemed both archaic and oddly playful. "You sure this thing is real?" Max asked, glancing up at Harold, whose eyes twinkled behind wire-rimmed glasses. Harold adjusted his spectacles, the faint scent of old leather and wood polish filling the cramped space. "Real," he said softly and deadly. "This book has a history darker than most care to admit. People have died laughing at these jokes. It's not just superstition. There's a curse woven into these pages." Max swallowed, the weight of the book suddenly heavier in his hands. "So it's not just a gimmick?" "Far from it," Harold replied, leaning forward conspiratorially. "The jokes here, they're more than humor. They're a weapon. And there are those who want to keep that weapon for themselves." Lila knew in, standing by the door in her usual confident stance, smirked. "Sounds like you're getting into deep trouble, Max." Max forced a nervous smile, flipping to another joke but pausing. "Trouble seems to find me." Their investigation led them next to a shadowy underground locale, a narrow stairwell descending beneath the city streets. The air was thick with incense and murmurs as they slipped inside a hidden chamber where a small cult gathered. Faces illuminated by flickering candlelight turned toward them, eyes gleaming with fanatic reverence. "You seek the truth behind the humor," a voice intoned from the darkness. "The laughter that kills is sacred. It is the divine jest." Max's heart pounded as he exchanged a glance with Lila. "Sacred," he whispered. The cultists chanted, their voices rising in eerie harmony, celebrating the lethal punchlines that had caused so much chaos. It was a moment of surreal horror, worshippers of death through laughter. Max felt a chill run down his spine. This was no ordinary curse. It was a belief system, a dangerous ideology. Back in the relative safety of a dimly lit cafe, Max wrestled with the mounting pressure. He stared at a scribbled joke on a napkin, the words blurring as self-doubt crept in. What if I'm just a fool playing with forces I don't understand? Lila reached across the table, her smirk softening into genuine concern. You're not a fool. You're the only one who's seen the truth and lived to laugh about it. That makes you stronger than you think. Her pragmatic words grounded him, but the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders. Their research uncovered a newsreel buried deep in an archival vault, flickering on an old projector. The image of the jester appeared, a haunting figure clad in a tattered costume, his face painted with a sinister grin that seemed to mock fate itself. The jester's eyes gleamed with malevolent mirth, a living embodiment of the curse's twisted humor. Max felt the room close in around him. So this is the man behind all this. Lila nodded grimly. And he's still out there, pulling the strings. As the chapter closed, Max realized that the joke book was not just a relic, but a battleground, a place where humor, death, and fate collided. The uneasy alliance with Lila, the threat of the cult, and the looming presence of the jester forced Max to confront not only the deadly power in his hands, but the fragile line between laughter and disaster. He wasn't just fighting for his career anymore, he was fighting for his life, and perhaps for the very soul of comedy itself. The question hung in the air: could he outwit a fate that thrived on absurdity and deadly punchlines? The answer was anything but certain.